现的前吧，三界心都没得不，照跟南大现小一当我。哦呀。他就得结巴什么？他在送对吧？个熊，那么这个才对，是吧？从那么多我过去，真的他了，我什么的，结束爸爸那么去，也没听你没留把我谁个了，通往我酒店吧，对吧？通往我酒店被拆了，我是前面那边买吧，通的没多我。反正我酒店被拆了，是吧？我说我酒店被拆了，安尼解释不把那米记谁干了？安尼看说的我都结巴当，一起结巴，我解释不把那米记，你们对你没入我谁我去？俺的兄弟团了，俺的他。通话的毛多，真的才嘛什么那把没把给。你这个团了，参谋总监那把没把的兄弟他没留团，你们的你没留我先送说是我的，他就过什么的，这把送我的，
So here, then regarding texts or scripture which are deemed to be sort of pure by means of the three investigations, then here there's a quotation from the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, which says then that those things which are seen and unseen, understanding their meaning should be known as having two aspects, so direct realization and inference. And by that, they are deemed to be undeceiving, non-deceptive. So here, this is again referring to the parts of the teachings that are a manifest object, which are things that we can see directly. Those are sort of checked by direct perception, and if direct perception doesn't harm the understanding of that, then that is considered to be non-deceptive. And then those parts of the text, the scripture, that are hidden objects need to be verified then as being non-deceptive by a inference. So this is the way then in which and there are three objects, though, those that are manifest, those that are hidden, and those that are extremely hidden. And so the extremely hidden can only be understood through the sort of validating that which one can see and one can't see through direct realization and inference. And so here, this is a source for this assertion of how one goes about investigating the meaning of texts and whether it is sort of pure.
Oh yeah, I take the Denmark, Shaja Nasu Botigi, Nasu Majana, Sundua Shaja Nasu Janas, Tonga said, Mundu. 大了没得吧？俺那到农业去，我就那那糖不，糖比加把就比上，我送给加把就比有糖。我就那你，我就那你为加把就比有是干了，他大了带那多个呀，他妈呢我是不是到没错哟？我就那那你为加把就比有也拉是，那你话，俺那结巴就会有人啊！但是呢，初中来等着穷啊，是呢，初中他先学完那些钱呢，基本上就成绩得三个，初中来等着穷啊，大不，我怎么当我都只有来带娃是，到结巴当，这边告诉他的，我都给这个巴当。 反正我从有，马上我都给把它带了多没弄吧，他带了搞了国外的是呢，农局上签了个就我到国外一张，初中的等着中华大部，初中的等着中华大部，我怎么当？反正我都有了带完那是，那汤不你结巴汤呢是那汤不你是呢，汤我就当。 안에 중사 고주 중사 고주니와 스가라 총타왕 오지다 중사 고주 내 타모 무슨 달리 아니 어제 뭐도 제박이 유래 대봐 가서 고주는 내 이위 제박이 유인라 주름라 된도 중왔다고 무슨 당 뭐도 제박이 유래 대와나 내 당분지 제바 다네 다 통주 때문에 잘하는 아니 무슨 세면 내가 매봐다 주사 고주 때문에 저는 뭐도 제바게 내가 매봐다 다네 내 숨벌 펴와나 펴와 이래서 다 시도 고주 내 숨벌 펴와 이래 규용원되지 대입이 살아서 다 수rim당 수rim라 때는 된도 중화당 안 된도 어떻게 가서래 힘발라 때는 노지 중화 규용어되지 대입이지 대제 농참아 좋고 그래서 다 좀된 군대에 가르를 해서 좀된 되지 루다서 농대 참아 계속 잡에 좀된 되지 농 주제 좋고 그래서 규용어되지 대입이지 대제 아니 가서래 농참만 좋고 위치 괜히 남들에 내숨 보내 포하나 농대변에 카빌로스 내숨 발라 레와테스나 뭐도 제발 우주 통왕 우주기 무슨 참에 내가 매봐다 주사 고주라 뭐도 제발 그 내가 매봐티 여기 뛰는 내숨 펴와나 다 농을 때는 두고래 내숨반에 펴와나 농대변에 카빌로 시와 고마워서 단다 아니 시도 고지도 22 농을 때는 아니 두번마도 뭐도 기르배 좀 왔은 거
So here then regarding if one applies this understanding to the three types of objects of knowledge or apprehended objects, so here you can have manifest objects and then those that are slightly hidden and then those that are extremely hidden. So the manifest objects are those that we are directly able to investigate through direct perception. We don't need to rely upon any sort of a sign or reason in order to establish their validity. So for the first, those objects which are manifest, which we can directly access, then those are the object of the first type of investigation using direct perception. And then those objects which are slightly hidden then are the object investigated by the second type of investigation. So based upon using reasoning and logic, one is able to come to verify those kinds of objects. And then as the third type of object, this third type being something which is extremely hidden, and the example given here is that from ethics comes happiness and so forth. So those types of scriptural passages which are inaccessible to our direct perception or even inference, so they are beyond the object of either a direct realization or those an inferential realization. And so one has to, having done the first two types of analysis and determined that scripture is pure or doesn't have any kind of fault to it, one then has to sort of move to the third type and take it on faith, essentially, because this object is beyond the potential to be investigated by either a direct perception or a valid inference. So having investigated a scripture and determined that all of those portions which are which are manifest objects then do not contradict direct perception, and those objects which are slightly hidden are not contradicted by a valid inference, then one has to sort of move to that third step and take and accept the scripture as being valid, having validated it or investigated it through these two other means. So then it says one sort of moves to the third type of object, and because this is the meaning of what beings want to actualize, then one is able to posit that scripture as being valid. And so here again, quoting from the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, it says that sort of the way of scholars is to move to this third type. They quote scripture to apply to this third type of object, which is something that is beyond the scope of the other two types of investigation. So this is how one posits scripture which has topics which are inaccessible to either our direct perception or a valid inference. This is how one has to verify that. Based upon having investigated the other two types, one then moves that kind of understanding to the third type of object, the very hidden.
Oh yeah. 这个广播我切，但对这个听别了，当你点别多双啊，基本上就出去多些，但你不听了没了，结束你差别容易没，当你点别容易新，但你送我的，当你点别多听别人是个把呢，但咱们这个告诉，俺家大开始说的是呢，开始过我的是呢。他说的最后天了，没了几，闲了就是885，谁敢说那些钱呢？就年代的电视电笔听，电视上头7毛老板电把一张，电视电把了没了把一张，俺那缺钱，看送把这样，俺那没了一把的，那们这告诉题不就过了？最后天了，没了几，闲了就是885，我闲，现在就是去除轻易送把他们家。俺那没路啊，对起300个带的没路啊，人家最后天了没路就闲了78万，希望带的100是，人家当年对比多几天，当年电话了没路吧，人家当把电军股程度电话了，电军装备程度电话了没路吧，人家，俺他说的，去最先东北人先没路人把的，他提送过的，是吧？最后天了没路就闲了78万人，希望得赢了是哦。
So sorry, I made a mistake. It wasn't the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, but the Pramana Vartika that was quoted from. So the commentary on the Compendium of Valid Cognition. And so here, the thought of this is that in order to determine or to accept as valid those points of scripture which are inaccessible to us, either through direct perception or through a valid inference, we base then, having investigated the teachings that we are able to investigate, we see whether those are something that we can consider to be valid, and then based upon that, we are then able to infer that the other portions of the teaching are valid. So here, for example, if one reads about the Four Noble Truths and sees that these are valid teachings, then one can turn to the rest of the Buddha's speech and see that this is something that we can consider to be valid, that we can consider to be non-deceptive. So here, the sort of intention of this quotation from the Pramanavartika is saying, like here, or like this, laying out an example of a teaching which is in accordance with the sutras. So here, if one has come to understand the meaning of emptiness through dependent origination, and dependent origination as emptiness, and see that that is undeceptive, so because the main meaning is undeceiving or is non-deceptive, then those others as well can be sort of understood to be valid as well. So because one comes to realize that the teachings that the Buddha gave on emptiness, teaching emptiness as dependent origination, this is a valid teaching. So then for those points which are inaccessible to us, for example, a scripture saying that ethics brings happiness and so forth, we can extrapolate and assume that those teachings as well are valid.
Oh yeah. 希望大一了，先让德巴西观念传给记住，各地现在这恰讲， 망치 소소하래 다 dom바시 sana 가르레 sana 아니 가사라 메데 쳐라 명바 쳐들 때봐 dom바비 가사 되라 메데 봐 아니 그 때비 쳐들 때봐 아니 쳐라야 그 때비 쳐들라야 아니 치기 된당 아니 된다니 치다 되니 여봐 인자 아니 되라 때봐 쳐라 메데 되라 때봐 전대라야 아니 우리 공부시도 장괴지당 장된당 뭐든 이예배 나네 아니 뭐든 담바 좋아 아니 비나네 아니 가서래 남실은 뭐든 이실을 된세 가라 아니 남실 추발라 마담바 아니 이시 뭐 주어기 아니 무슨도 떠와 다시 두나 돈이 무슨도 베시더라 두고래 일단 된게 거네 안에 다 장의 제주대 좋아 장의 제주 대선도와 가서디 장의 제주 갑디 현난 대차장 마을 지난 마치스 야
So, here then, it continues, so like that, furthermore, one, by means of the four reliances, he could go into more explanation about how to distinguish between those scriptures requiring interpretation and those that are definitive, because there is a connection here, but out of fear for being too lengthy, he's not going to go into all of this. But so here, the four reliances are what one are sort of advice about how to approach these teachings. So the first of these is that one shouldn't rely upon the person or the teacher, but rather on the teaching that they give. And then the second one is that one shouldn't just rely upon the words, but rather the meaning of those words. And among the meaning that one is going to rely upon, one doesn't rely upon this sort of meaning that requires interpretation, but the definitive meaning. So one should rely upon the definitive meaning, not that which requires interpretation. And then the final one of these is that one should rely upon like stainless wisdom, some sort of like higher wisdom, gnosis, so a valid kind of wisdom, not just our ordinary sort of understanding. So here that's referring to a correct understanding of emptiness. And so this is the way in which we should come to a proper understanding of texts and so forth, is through a good understanding of the four reliances.
Oh yeah, that's 어디 마치네 마치소체 마치소체 다점바 쨈면은 주발라 다 수마보 땜바 쨈면도 주발라 안에 친한 그 땜비 쨈당 친한 그 땜비 쨈세가나 시로의 땜비 쨈당 아니 라데 땜바 그 연대 쨈당 쨈당 수디 시네 교회디 시네 아니 땜발라 그와 기수 이 예배나네 다 지난 그 땜바다 땜비 교회데라 가르레서나 전시 시는 레송바 치지 제수 오발라 그바 탐제 룬도 치르 라 여기 자와 또 치로 세리라 팀바레라 다데 아테나 세가나 오자 텐시신의 레송바 세대다 대니 조수 저 대니 조수 군도다 텐다 비내루지 텐 시다신 스바타치네 점된대이 아니 가서 시 담바니지 내루치다 와신도 언니 때라 파바라 인자 치다 와신도 스바타치네 나랑 그 뒤라 치다를 대니 때라 파베 때라 팜네 아니 또바 깨네 람냥술은 아니 점된데 란당 랑그 치다 송 가서 냠냠 여바 나시 레버 송주 지유관에 레버 송주 지유관에 레버 송비 아니 레버 송비 덤바 때내서 대인자 말을 레버 송비 덤바 레버 송비 때서서 때내서 때네 설마나 아니 덤바부 치치스 레버 숨비 덤바 티 제스 슌 덤바 치치 제스 슌나 레버 숨비 덤바 치치 제스 슌나 아니 대변 케베스 대변 케베 누부주의 베다르스 누부주의 베다르스 누부 삼보 누부 좀 보치더라 아니 주당 누부 좀 보치 처마 타바더라 대변 케바게 좀 숨이 전에 주거하다 와 배는 배차와 나신 전에 아니 좀 된데 기장 랑기 아니 셈 정와라 두자 셈 정와라 로만 남라양 아니 누구 뺏으면 누구 주에 빼나신 전에 아니 가서 르바 담비 주면 받자봐 이외 코와라 좋아자봐 순배 퇴전람도 주어자봐 야나 르바 담비 아니 주면 받자봐 아무년 보라잖아 이외 사회 라브린 아니 순배 같이 벨람지르바 어떤데 때네 아니 셈정와라 로반남 시시급발레 시시급바 탐제人的 성신 시바 코와다 시와 체배 양대와 我人的 성대 미지의 세전도 주와 인데 미지 와서 안에 대다도 과를 미지 받아 시기 사람 밀로마 야
No. So here, then the second topic, so fearing that he would get too long, he's not going to go too much into the rest of the way that one distinguishes that requiring interpretation from that which is definitive. And then it turns to the next topic, which is therefore, so for the reasoning established above, establishing that the teacher is faultless, and then showing the sort of faults of non-Buddhist teachers and the qualities of a Buddhist teacher, the Buddha. So the second point is knowing the qualities and faults respectively, and then seeing that way how one generates respect for the teacher. And so the first of these comes in verse 31, where it says, "You who speak excellently by seeing as it is, for those who train in your footsteps, all degenerations will become remote, for the root of all faults will be undone." So here it then turns to explicating the verse, and it says then, you who brought to its completion the seeing of the meaning of the way that things are, so understanding proper presentation of conventional and ultimate truth, coming to determine that meaning as kind of the basis or foundation, and then who on the basis of that taught well by means of the 10 ways of teaching. And so you, teacher, having spoken this well, then there is a wish to follow after you as a master in the example of washing jewels, right? It's not the name. The normal trupe the
누구도야 될 좀 봤으면 요아래서
No.
정말 마신 다 봤잖아. 정말 알아봐. 대래 아니 참 진짜 대래 정말 차와 줘야 안 누구 좀 봤으면 요아래.
Okay. So, like the way that you investigate a jewel by washing it and so forth in order to examine the quality of that, there are three sorts of levels of examination, the way that you would examine the scriptures and so forth. Then by following after, by training one's mind in the trainings and so forth. And so the Buddha taught the disciples the various trainings based upon the relative sharpness or dullness of their faculties, so presented the path of the profound view and the path of the extensive activities and so forth for those in accordance with their needs. And so by doing so, by training after, as per the example of the Buddha, by traversing through those paths, one is able to make remote promote all of the sort of degenerations, all of the badness of samsara and nirvana as well. So by following after and training according to the way that the Buddha has laid out this path, then one is also able to achieve the same kind of state.
Oh yeah, sem jawala. Loba namji, ane sishi guba, sebada shiyu guba mnyewa tamje, rindu songje, ane mejiwe chechen de chuare ese. Ane sishi nyewa tamje, rindu songje, mejiwe chechen de chuwa de karere ese na, ane nyewa kunje zawa, danze mariba doba chucher ese. O, nyugun teyi zawa, ni, 我写的太阳技术大了穷，写过你我根据咋话记者打话记者演讲，你我根据咋话大都准备马里巴大把就话演讲，就马里巴老板，俺那台了等来穷话给是，俺那年话谁去古巴么年话他们家俺那老板做的是，
No. So here, then, it continues saying that if one is, by training in the path of training the mind and so forth, then one makes distant all sort of degenerations, all bad things of samsara and nirvana, because they won't give rise to that. So here, this is referring to, and there's a verse by Chandrakirti where he says that the source of all degenerations, all bad things within the world, is this grasping is the view of the perishable collection. So this ignorance, which is grasping at a self, is the fundamental root of cycling in samsara. And if one turns away that grasping, if one reverses that, then none of the rest of the links of dependent origination will take place. So here, by properly understanding the Buddha's teachings, one is able to reverse that grasping at a self, that ignorance which grasps at true existence or grasps at a self, and thus remove the root of all degenerations within samsara.
Oh yeah, that thing, rangi dambaki, yendende. That thing, church dan la chi chowi, yuring awa dan jejang. Chichi gyanam pewashin, dadu dawa dan chiro, say digi, dadu mudiwi dambaki, gyende imbari. Right? And it's a mendezi, and a lungoji dambala, chi chowi, and a mudi jaman, and a that's chirowi, mudi janji. And in Norba. No lam la gawi beta Norway lam manua mayimba lam chiji loam lam Norway ani Norway lam la ani ti kawam ti rimbo ani bezo mangawa temba chejang是吧 경기 리 tamja misa sabar minjuwa 경기 리부 tamja su jewa chebana 치질대 화바양 치질 뛰어난 배화신 있으니까 치질대 화바 내다 뉴몬베게 그 말라 쇼쇼쇼스 배화신도 아니란 줄에 배화 주그래
So here, then, the next verse, verse 32, is explained, and this reads, "But those who turn away from your teaching, though they may struggle with hardship for a long time, faults increase ever more, as if being called forth, for they make firm the view of self." So here, then, those non-Buddhists following after some sort of mistaken teacher, some non-Buddhist kind of teacher, so something outside of the teachings of the Buddha, they may practice this path, this mistaken path, for a long time, for eons even, making themselves very tired in doing so, exhausting themselves with that. But that path is not able to extinguish any of their faults whatsoever. So then, because they are just continuing and relying on this path, which is not actually extinguishing any of their faults, it's like they're calling to them all sorts of karma and afflictions, like, please come here, all of you faults, come to me, and those increase within their continuum.
Oh yeah. 아니 란주에 표와 주제에서 아니 링아게 차와 칸트 다도 다외 다와开了吧인상是吧 링아게 아니 차와 칸 차와 탐제 아니 다도 다와 아시 다도 다와 다외 차와 초스送的 아니 다다 땜바를 채위 시로 세월라 다다 땜바 전화 인상 아니 다다 땜보당 숙심보 여와 인상 티 장비 아니 예와 제다 아니 동아다 예와 제다 아니 표화시도 연구로 와 인상 다 디승과래
No. So no matter what they do, all of the actions of this kind of individual, all of the actions of their body, speech, and mind are all sort of aided or helped by this view of a self. So this individual has a very strong view of some kind of a solid, permanent self. And because they have such a strong view, then whatever they are doing is just reinforcing that. And so for them, they aren't able to do any sort of actions that are getting them out of this cycle, but rather whatever they do is just reinforcing and increasing the kind of afflictions in their mind stream and the faults that they have.
Oh, that did bella. Anet mudil hajok logician said, Mudiba hajok digi. Anything in la bear, Lomambi Pado Kawasan, Yamba Shajang, Ani Rangi, and Jai Rawa, and Tajumbo Chair, Jai Rawa, and this is Chiwaki Seni, Tesia Walatana, anything is in Yam, Condo General, things in Yabilogi, Watena, she's so water.
No. So it says like the history of Lakche, and so this is an individual, a non-Buddhist practitioner who obtained high states of meditative concentration, meditative stabilization, and was able to remain in such a meditative state for so long that his hair actually grew out really, really long, and at some point a mouse came along and started like gnawing on his hair, eating his hair, and the guy got really mad, and so this anger like caused him to fall from this high meditative state. So although he'd achieved this feat of meditative stabilization, it didn't reduce his afflictions in any way whatsoever.
Oh yeah, that didn't I do that. Chiji Demela Chichovi, Anjum Dendi, Ani Lundoji Dambala Chichovi, Ani Chu Dumuki Dumbas, Ani Mashiva Dumariga Milomba. Milomba. Anything is Bana, and someday Tambone, Sunday, Ani City Casore, Chiame Majaki, Ani Nimon Unju Tani. When you want to buy a sitting a senior top. City by the sun and knees. The bananas, the being you want you are sometimes when you are Sumba, Shiva. Ani Nagata, Namshete, Chiame, Chieftain Party, Nimon you upon our mother, upon Bomutua. You don't wish it top. She lost on the top. Or told you already. Jiji Dana Chichu with Demo, do Demo Kudava, City part of Tonson and is sitting with his torness. Ani Dunga Yanju Sibatu Lion and Dunga Yanjung. Thing is like Namne, Condo Javala, so that you go Nazi Chene, Condo, or Minimum Jedigana, I know Mushi Yonguare, Mushi Homa, Mushi Yanguare. Either Dunga Yanjung, any Yanko Korikawalenjaki, any less than a Sibatu. The Chiro Damak Seche, Chabati. Kuji Dembe Jedro was something with Mato Jang. Niji Mireta to Sibatan and Dobache said, Anna Jumden de Jesu Tawagi, Annie or Shuji Dambe Jedro Wagi, Annie Sunday Jungushi by Yinayang. Niji Mireta Shindo, Mushimato Nayang, Annie. Dancing Mari being Yambogombala, then Duji Mira Sashidu, Dancing Mari being Yambogombala, then any juice Dancing Mari Badoba and by any Sabakoi Javadobachi, and a Dobachi, so Tetan, next words, Dembagi, then the Dipinala, Rangi Dembata, Shenji, Dembagi, Kenda, and then Shabateta. My young Atoki Kaso, and Mudibada. 어디 뒤에 샤바니 오래 지바 내 지바
So then here it quotes from Praise for the Praiseworthy. Here again, making the same kind of point as this verse in Praise to Dependent Origination and the point above, the story about this guy who got angry. So here, so beings who stray from your teachings, here referring to the teachings of the Buddha, who are blinded by their ignorance, their delusion, although they may go all the way up to the peak of samsara, they're only accomplishing their own suffering, the arising of future suffering. So for those practitioners who are doing some kind of practice which is aside from the heart of the Buddha's teachings, they may be able to achieve these high states all the way up to the peak of samsara, or the peak of cyclic existence. They are able to achieve meditative concentrations, the first, second, third, fourth meditative concentrations, to actualize those. They don't just achieve a semblance of that. They're able to attain those kinds of states. And in those states, they don't have any sort of manifest afflictions. They aren't actively giving rise to their afflictions, but they haven't in any way abandoned or damaged the seeds of those afflictions. So they'll have to give rise to them again. If, for example, like the guy who got his hair eaten, if you manifest an affliction, if you have an affliction emotion arise, you actually degenerate from the meditative concentration that you have achieved. And so these individuals, they may get all the way up to the peak of samsara. They can attain these high meditative states, but they're only accomplishing existence of again having to give rise to suffering. And so for someone who follows after your teaching, by contrast, although they may not achieve the actual level of meditative concentration, and I think it means like putting a cloth over the eyes of Mara. Is it putting a cloth over? I'm not exactly sure. You will reverse existence. So here, even if you follow the teachings of the Buddha, even if you're not able to actualize a state of meditative concentration, if you are relying on the antidote to ignorance, relying on the antidote which is able to counteract our ignorance grasping at true existence, then you will be able to reverse samsara. Despite not having obtained these high kind of meditative states, you are able to directly counteract that which is causing you to cycle in samsara. So this is, as it's explained in the text here, the quotation from Praise for the Praiseworthy is going to the same point.
Oh yeah, that is it. Sibatanya dobaji jesoda ne jigose. That didn't change in a less sumba said never soon to the country sana. And it do you caso. Tambici Toma Gawas. That is good getting doing on your invited. The Tambici Toma Gawa, Padu Gawa, Tamagawa, Ten Sambo, Sindhu Sambo, Mandeva, Yonsu Sowa, Yonsu Taba, and Yonsu Chawa, Lever Sumba, and that takes you with him, buddy. There you are.
도마개와
도마개와 바두개와 타마개와 tensambo, 신두삼보, 만제와 용수소와 용수타바, 용수창와 레버숨바 전에 대숨 주어디 말이야. 나지 도마개와 거래를 아니 다 도마개와 니시 너희 니시 이가다 그 터바티지 나왔어야 되지. 봐도 개발에 가려서는 안에 좀 무신해가 그 안에 잘못 동반이냐 잘못 동반이 때게 된다. 그러나 타만 개발이 좀 안에 좀 된대지 숨발을 제수 일한체 와라. 아니 제수한테 좀 된지 숨발을 어버때도 써야 되게 대대인 말이 타만 개와 봐도 개와 타만 개와서 대산보 세와는 제자 대시 때문에 아니 대산보 신주산보 세와는 아니 제대와다 거대와다 냠바마와나 아니 친구 삼보 세이다 대디바도 대도와 안티주다야 집어도.
So, here, then, so that comes to the same point as is being made in this 32nd verse. So here, then, as far as the 10 ways of teaching well, so from the sutra, did you catch the name of that sutra? Okay. So like the pile of the jewels sutra, I think so. The heap of jewels sutra. Ranakutra Sutra. So here, this lists these 10 ways in which the Buddha spoke well. So as far as the holy Dharma, the precious Dharma that the Buddha spoke, it is the 10, and I hope I got all 10. So it's virtuous at the beginning, virtuous at the middle, virtuous at the end, has like a good meaning. Good meaning is about. So, and then the words are also good. Then there is that it is not sort of mixed in any kind of a way. Then it is completely perfect, completely perfected, completely purified, completely cleansed. And chuginangne tamadi kareres. What?
No. 차제시 따와가다지 차제시 땜바 인장 치료기 아니 치료 몇대 주다 만져와 용선 좋아 세대 컨디스그에서는 용선 좋아지 감숨지 두숨지 아니 녀mom바 뽕이 녀보 용선 좋아 땜바 만져와 용선 좋아 만져 용선 가자지 대해서 뭐 친구서 만져 용선 좋아 용수 좋아 차차 다 용수 다 봤니 아니 라신기 남다기 라신 남다기 치 아니 치매 용수 다봐 용수 다봐 용수 다봐치 용수 좋아 용수 다봐 다들 가로 만져 용수 좋아 대해서 뭐 친구서 만져 용수 좋아 용수 다봐 용수 창와니 아니 가르래 사나 시주기 년보 와 누부지 치마 시제 집이 년보 용수 좋아 다 구조와데 레버 숨바데 아니 무디바 남지 아니 치제 마로바 샤바 인장 네와 샤바당 점된데 랑주진네 치제 마로바 땜바 인바인다 레버 숨바 제가나 오다 순주 레버 숨주 주제 대신 바래.
So here, where it says like virtuous at the beginning, this is referring to the sort of homage that one pays at the beginning, the kind of recognizing the qualities of the teacher, and then being virtuous at the middle is like at the point of the actual text. The teaching itself is something that is good and is pure. Here, the teaching on dependent origination, and then virtue at the end is referring to afterwards praising and rejoicing in that teaching so given. To have a good meaning means that it is teaching suchness, that it is teaching the way that things actually are. Here where it says then that the fifth quality out of these 10, that it has like good words and syllables. Here this means that it's easy to understand. This is something which is easy to listen to and to understand the meaning of. And then The next qualification or quality is to not be mixed at all. So here, this is referring to the teaching of the four seals of Buddhism, and so this is not mixed in any way with any non-Buddhist teachings. It is taught so that it accords with those four seals and isn't mixed in any way with non-Buddhist teaching. And then that the teachings are completely perfected is that it teaches all of the antidotes for all of the various afflictions of the three realms. So here, these teachings are able to act as an antidote to whatever sort of affliction one might have, and then that they are completely purified. This is referring to the like uncontaminated sphere of phenomena. Jumpa, did he say?
Is it?
Yeah, it's referring to that it gets at the Cheying, or the sort of sphere of phenomena. And then finally, the ninth qualification is that it is an antidote. These teachings are completely cleansed, I guess you could say, in terms of being an antidote to the obscurations to omniscience. And then these teachings are sort of well spoken. They don't I didn't get what the last part was. Yeah, they're not, there isn't any sort of mistake or deception. These teachings are unerring. So these are the 10 qualities of good speech. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is 10 사보, 7주 사보 소지, 시소지, 개와, 다디, 너, 군조 지령이 돌아요. 리나라와 개와당. 아니, 남세리 바탕. 我的经济对我说了，他希望瞧我在下班在下，他听他现在的他现在他经谈这些，他就需要拿钱是吧？他你话我出的趟呢，俺那点把那个搞出开始是呢，去那个准备开发党，准备开发的，俺军党原来俺那开发的线呢，俺那点把那他把接的了。 타바 기주제네. 아니 초제 통에 아니 덤발라 쿠와면 타바 기주라 우지 텐당 아니 큰 경치 쪼집이 수니체. 그봐. 나 담보되라 우지 텐데라. 에모모 개외 되니지 개발 공도 추바차라. 그봐. 계속 강기 코너니 결라지지 그메주. 지지 그메주. 아니 가서 가서 다들 안내라 돼서 실력지 크면 줄을 써야 돼요. 에마고 시원에 와사와데. 저 신앙 그때 때문에 개발담. 넘바당 때문에 개발. 안에 시원에 와사와 요래. 아니 에마 개변되니지 세가 랑도 시비 로제 견시. 랑도 진에 치마로 버치 개변 로제 견 남지. 아니 랑그 덤바디 랑그 덤바당 치료 그 덤바디 얘기 처음에기 개바 콘도 추바 티세스 아니 치료 덤바당 덤바디 멤버당 랑그 덤바당 덤바니보다 초도 추하기 아니 개바 콘도 추바 티세스 아니 대제 관계 관에 대해서는 이 타반에서 그전 말이 니 타반에 아니 그 안보철라 지지 그월 메주디 그월을 그래서 윤장 가르에서나 지난 그 담보가 개바 시에니 시와티 그러 그 아니 그래서 야
So here then, those are the 10 qualities of the Buddha speech being well spoken. And to know more about that, you could read the commentary to this particular sutra, as well as the Namashe Rigpa and the commentary to the ornament for the sutras and so forth. So here then, moving on to the next point, it says, having seen that that way, or that understanding that. So here, based upon understanding the differences between the qualities of the Buddha as a teacher and the sort of failings or faults of non-Buddhist teachers, so having seen that, then how one gives rise to respect, devotion, and this is divided into two different parts. The first of these is the actual meaning, and then the way in which one gives rise to humility and joy. So the first of these, it comes in verse 33, where it reads, aha, or amazing, when the wise comprehend the differences between these two, why would they not at that point revere you from the depths of their being? So this first word, emao, is like an expression of amazement, wonderment, and so having come to understand the differences, the qualities and faults of Buddhist and non-Buddhist teachers and their teachings, one gives rise to a sort of amazement at the Buddha's teachings, because having come to understand the sort of differences, the superiority of the Buddha's teachings, a scholar who has the kind of intelligence to be able to discriminate between what one should take up into practice and what one should avoid, they are able to understand, having come to understand the sort of superiority of one and the other is lesser, then having come to that point, why would they not then, from the depths of their heart, give rise to devotion, to respect for you, the master of sages, because it's totally right or logical to have respect for this teacher. So when one has come to understand the qualities of the Buddha's teaching as opposed to the faults of non-Buddhist teachings, the real message of this verse is, why would you not give rise to respect? It seems completely logical that you would.
Oh yeah. 我看是自己渴望没去都可以说是，但你看这边来是呢，俺那他来不用不得把拿了，当你三节敲没真是，俺那多嘛，当你三节个敲满着，俺那去了没对不敲的整个马人是吧当，开把怕就可以告诉，俺那当你多把钱帮呢。什么都没对的是，当你端把钱票呢，上街去了结束做，这些是呢，对面店了，俺了原店店，只有他这些的这些钱没多，我原店店是当你端把钱去了，端把放在上街挣，俺那端把上街了结束做个人是，如果有经常看的人在那，俺专店店去，俺那端把得了，对面买吧，原店的店吧。去了咱把见到家把人当，俺那就用我写呢，俺那我上街给点把了，俺那就是做个人，上街就是做个人，是他提送过来的，到底有之前的我通过去，写食堂，俺那电话不得把的了，上街讲的，那边等进电话中啊，结束点把写吧，是写吧。但定节话就嘛，什么你让他把其他我都随便，我这有土蛋蛋吧，啥他的是吧？但定节话就嘛，结束点把写吧，点把写吧是，安尼。但定节话就是什么你让他把其他话行都随便一张，让给其他先把西把行都安尼闲了呀，对吧？是吧？这样把这把你这随便，我这有土蛋蛋吧他。我俺那台把来青蛙给，俺那每年青蛙出把给给俺娃当，俺那绿鸡泡沫，哦，绿泡沫当娃是，俺那绿刚说的，不是切把当代表他们家娃，按他们屋里下的些娃的天着是的对吧？刚才这个娃，就刚才说养的就是那什么事，养这就是。
Okay, I'll say something. So then here from this magnificent praise from the deities. Here, this says then, so like coming to understand that the Buddha is superior to other teachers. So I, having not grasped at those like non-Buddhist teachers, praise the Buddha as being sort of supreme to those others, being superior to other teachers. And so I abandon all other teachers. And then the last line of this verse isn't here, but then it says, I go for refuge to you, the Buddha. So based upon seeing the faults of non-Buddhist teachers and the qualities of Buddhist teachers, one then abandons all other non-Buddhist teachers and goes for refuge to the Buddha. And so similarly, from the self-titled commentary, Buddhapalita by Buddhapalita, he says then, the master who taught following dependent origination, this having seen exactly as it is, this profound meaning of dependent origination, then those who have sort of like wonderment in their hearts. So he's describing the kind of signs of faith, and so from faith they have eyes which give rise to tears. They're like crying at the wonderment of this speech and this teaching. And then it continues, so they also have I think the technical term is horripilation, where you get goosebumps, where your hair stands on end from having a feeling of amazement or wonderment. No, there's a real word. It's horripilation. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Was it?
So with palms folded together, then like I place I think here at your head, but I'm not. I think is like bowing down to this teacher. So it's describing the kind of reaction of faith of having seen the qualities of the Buddha, and because the Buddha saw exactly as it is, this correctly the profound meaning of dependent origination, and then by teaching that to others, it gives rise to this kind of inspiration, feelings of faith towards the teacher, the Buddha.
Oh yeah, that meeting, Umajuki Titi, they tell me, Niji Pabu Tama Juba, Kanye, but tell us to be Sanjalo, 7 years. They took Komadi Kanseri. Quite well. It's a comedy. Oh yeah, Niji Pabu Tama Juba, Kanye, but tell us to be Sanjalo, 7 years. Umajuki tell the Chipa to Jetakaja. Oh, Kavala Jubi, Chema Trupi, Jangawa. 吕吉不生切瓦当代表他们家瓦乌下的切瓦的全照我是家的这个等待的卡索的，那么我开外的你去开发港都去把这些港给矿呢，你去了解决根本上，现就是怎么解决有几怎么样的了就没有得是吧？那么我先其实你说这些港个过呢，去了解决根本就如此钱是吧？那得开发之前，但今天他你话了，卡说的肯定我当早结吧你这个了，是吧？处的是呢，等把了国际出台了，你以前呢，肯定我的早结不出你以前呢，但肯定我的看上来是呢。其实他妈其实没，恰恰的全怎么了？我就这么应该也罢，其实他妈就现在我就这么，他来说跟电话带人才听吧的，你专门的听开始说，其实他妈其实没是干了，他等你去去收了加息，收了，你啥话的加息呗，等你马多吧，但是没事。是吧？你当把电用给出电比送给恰恰人怎么来呀？你别看是肯定是个了，讲过那么讲话就吐了，冲把人的，你马冲把给肯定的，是吧？看是有些咱们就夸你啊，马多才买才不就马光不看是才买多把马多把给出现的，肯定的，是吧？当把电用给团出电比送给恰恰的团怎么了？有些咱们来。 语界了，我怎么写？我去怎么写语界？我怎么了带呢？俺那东把你给再去怎么进来？我也帮。他把他们家钱把钞给带我钱吧，我等天了样，俺他把他们家钱把钞给带我的钱了。处的什么呢？俺那电子怎么不打？俺那讲我那么装我抢你打你，对于的是俺那明儿个出点呢，叫那装啊，明儿个吃个，俺那两岸的东巴了，俺那两岸的东巴。对的是，两个人东北我们他我告诉了，对的，路路看到是先嘛，他比原来一风波太大，广东下边上街跟原来风波太大，上街上提去了一人不的接触双江，俺那上街上去给提原来包都没被切切怎样，俺那马上我的马年是顶巴的是吧？对说。我这个其实他妈其实没切些人团长了，我就这么讲也把带了交给大家，带我带一些，呀。
So here then, this description from Buddha Palita, where he describes faith arising and such that there are tears in the eyes and you get goosebumps and so forth. There is a similar verse in Chandrakirti that expresses the same kind of sentiment of giving rise to faith in the teacher for having come to an understanding of the teachings, then giving rise to faith and having those signs like that. So then to turn to the next point of these two, there are 2 points. Sort of demonstrating humility and then how one gives rise to joy. So here, this comes in the next, these points will be covered in the next 2 verses. And the first of these comes in verse 34. And it says, let alone your numerous teachings, even in the meaning of a small part, those who find ascertainment in a cursory way, this brings supreme bliss to them as well. So here, although Je-Lama Tsongkhapa is talking about just merely understanding just a part of this, he's sort of doing this out of humility. He actually has given rise to a full understanding within his own continuum of the teachings of the Buddha, but out of his sort of demonstrating humility, he says this. So the meaning of the first verse 34 then is when one, so leaving aside all of the teachings of the Buddha, so all of the teachings dealing with the vast and the profound, so not even talking about realizing all of those teachings, all of the collections of the teachings, but to even understand just a part of even one part of the teaching, so to have some sort of understanding of even just a portion of those teachings on the way of emptiness and dependent origination, and not even necessarily to have come to a full understanding, but to just have like a correct assumption, to just understand in a cursory or sort of not very deep way. So maybe a certainty that is merely understanding the words, like the sound of the words, but not fully having given rise to a valid like inference about those teachings. But even to have gained that kind of a cursory understanding, this as well gives the supreme bliss of liberation and omniscience. So here, this is referring to the fact that the author, Je-Lama Tsongkhapa, is sort of demonstrating humility, because although he has fully understood all of these teachings, he's saying that even if one is to have just a small sort of cursory understanding, this too will bring the supreme bliss of liberation and omniscience. And then it continues saying, so thinking about that way, one, he kind of calls out with this like alas, so being sort of tortured by his own misery, he calls out with these words, like so he's thinking alas. This is going into the next verse, talking about how he was sort of tormented by misery, not being able to fully understand all of the qualities, but so he hasn't fully come to an understanding of all of these qualities of the Buddha, but even so, he has a strong attitude of faith. Yeah, this.
我这等到的了，真正原来碰破了，人呢却不是双脚讲，原来却是马扎多些的，但到了你来家也得了，俺的你来家都啊，想嘛他比，俺的原来一碰破，俺的上街的缺的。上街的缺的，上街个缺，家人，但你了马上吧，现在样等到就我了这个了。 就是双家原来吃咱妈做事，那这个那么老是，但是对比这个县那么了，电中国团队多不原来马上台是吧？我看说的，其实他妈继续没吃下来的，我就在那说的，就大陆忙不去，对这原来碰破了，人家就是双脚讲。 原来吃咱马扎多些的，当把电中国团队对比，原来吃咱马扎话的，俺家马多个团队相当也这个的。呀，上这个我原来也没是吧？古代送给原来的马家去，上这个是，今天的马家去，电中国团队马多吧的。
No. So here then. This continues into verse 35, where the author, so Je Lama Tsongkhapa, is calling out, saying, "Alas, my mind was defeated by ignorance, though I've sought refuge for a long time in such an embodiment of excellence. I possess not a fraction of his qualities." So here he calls out, these are words of sort of like being tortured by misery, saying that you, the teacher, as has just been explained, I don't have even a fraction of those qualities which have just been explained, qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and so forth. Although I have sought them out, I have sought refuge for a long time, I haven't even been able to gain even a fraction of those qualities. Although I've sought them out, I haven't been able to gain even a fraction of the qualities of the Buddha. Now, in another commentary, it explains that you could also apply, instead of understanding this as a fraction of the qualities of the Buddha, you could say, you can understand having not come to understand even a fraction of the meaning of emptiness as dependent origination. So if you apply that meaning to that verse, that would be okay as well.
Oh yeah, that did it. 我的想法给其实他妈这些没吃下的团怎么了？我就这么讲呢，也把得了错给电话得了，现在推荐的团大党，俺那团的你告诉路边西家话给说把我。 那边西家告诉我，西家给告诉，说那么穷缺的啦，特什么啥话了？民族的特什么啥话？咱们也叫十八十五七八九十，俺那就说那么穷我给，他说的，啥话当把你别。 全到把个说那么穷我，咱没多个，说那么穷我给，俺那啥么当把你谈了，特种这样啥个嘛的，是吧？越大美，当把你谈，看这也没了，特种这样啥个嘛的是。特种社会咱们就讲是太多，俺那路期间嘛老多把派销，特种社会咱们就讲，俺那十八七八九，俺那考啊，俺那边18七八是吧？ 刚说的，有没这18七八九十的，18七八九十，学长，你刚说的，天一些吧，看的的是。 我记得他把领导没说，天一些吧，看的的，两岸的话，马就叫我先头办没办，我突出来行了是，看的天一些吧，当把一团些吧，看的的，俺的两岸人的话，马就讲， 동반이도 시튼 시베 아니 양알에 대와 마도 장 아니 철업 치마라 아니 개와 현도 아니 가서래 삼이 시tembe기 아니 그 시에 다 차네 아니 말을 토마토 돈이도 저새끼 돈이 또 막그 텐데 아니 수신도 공부할 때나 다시 수도 수신도 공부할 때네 아니 내가 사제지 공부도 그래서 아니냐 지라 내랑 거 공부할 때이나 알아랑 그 타바티다 톱 그래서 대토바데 아니 영어 그래 남이 징어 그래 남이 징어 그래 사소나 레디게 남이데 쳇딜라 맞는다 아래처럼 치마 가루라 내와 남이 징어 지래다 영어라 아니 걔는 영주다 레나처럼 영주시 요아르와 제가 치마랑 해와다 제가 치마 판자라 치마나 시전에 빌라야 징그레스我且说当，你自己谈不牛的那几个是，
So, here, then, as for the meaning of the first of these two verses, again, this is verse 34, saying, "Let alone your numerous teachings, even in the meaning of a small part, those who find ascertainment in a cursory way, this brings supreme bliss to them as well." And so here, similar to that verse, illuminating the meaning of that verse, from the 400 verses by Aryadeva, he has this verse that says, "So those of little merit will not even give rise to doubt about this Dharma, but by merely giving rise to doubt, one will tear samsara to shreds." So here, those who have little merit don't even give rise to a doubt about these teachings on emptiness. They don't even consider whether things could lack intrinsic existence. It doesn't, whether this kind of investigation isn't even something that they give rise to a doubt about. But someone who is now setting aside coming to an unmistaken understanding of emptiness, but even someone who gives rise to doubt, thinking that, well, maybe things are empty or maybe they lack intrinsic existence, even by giving rise to that little bit of doubt, one is able to tear samsara to shreds. You're able to tear it to tatters. So, here, even if you don't you don't have the merit to fully realize emptiness right away, to even give rise to doubt, thinking about it, is something that will bring results in the future. And then here it says, from knowing this, so from understanding a little bit about emptiness, even if one isn't in this very life able to obtain nirvana, then going to another life, one will definitely be able to get to that attainment. So here, the meaning is that even if one is not able to come to a full understanding of emptiness, even if one is not able to actualize nirvana in this one single life, by means of putting down these imprints, if in a future life one is then able to meet with a qualified teacher, then one will definitely be able to obtain Buddhahood. So whether or not one is able to fully attain enlightenment in one life, by studying these things and by putting down imprints, they will ripen in future lives, whether it is the next life or many lives down the road. This will lead to good results. So here the quotations are the same kind of meaning as verse 34. We should understand them in that way.
Oh yeah. That day, we let you know, she saw that net glass. That tender was a net cheap between the careers, or she just will long down. Jay said day. Soon you net cheap between the countries and tea shagella. Some jam power gunji, sonam tongues, and it's some jam and power. 탐제지 안에서는 탐제당 선음 돈바지 선음 대당 선음 돈바지 대당 안에 자주지 셈제바지牛我잖아 파연 수칙을 해서나 선음당 셈제지변 파연 총세 셈제지변 셈제지 파연 총세 자주지 셈제바래 아니 대외 농도지 탐지 증바데 아니 선은 쳐와래 라 장주지 성제 발래야 대외 농도지 탐지 증바데 체 선은 쳐라 다 장주지 성제 바탕 아니 가서래 대위 탐지 증바 탐지 현 증바 이 dom장 자치위 탐지 삼위 탐지 많이 봐 ਸਮ제바다 자치위 탐지 현 증바 이 dom장 돈이라 매위 주르기 차야 매배봐 서왔다 돈이 이렇게 돈이라 매배 기차 주르기 차야 매봐 매배봐서 dom장 아니 매배봐서 돌려 중화신 아니 차바차라
디 샘쟁 군 샘쟁 봐봐 군
샘쟁 왜
기만
그러세
디 지강 당보디 샘쟁 봐봐 군
샘쟁 파와 꾸지 샘쟁 파와 꾸지 안에 소남탕 자주지 샘쟁 바지부 파와 꾸지 소남탕 dom바다 샘쟁 바니부 샘쟁 바데 파연 총바래 와 샘쟁 바다 자주지 샘쟁 발래 개발 농도지 삼제 증바데 소남 쳐와래 라 샘쟁 바다 안에 람지름 받아라 잠일 람지름 받아 자시we 람지름 받니 여반네 샘대와다 대위 자시we 삼제현 짐반이 dom장 dom반이라 매위 아니 매와테게 아니 차 주르기 차 매배봐 매배봐서 돌아 중화시 차봐줘라 차라
So here then, in terms of the sort of the reasoning for the commentary that has come with this verse 34, as well as the kind of quotations that came from 400 verses and so forth. So if one sort of compares various types of merit, so one could take the merit of all ordinary beings, and that would be equal to one sort of quality or merit of a bodhisattva or someone who has given rise to bodhicitta. So here, ordinary beings who have not yet given rise to this attitude of bodhicitta, if you were to take all of their merits and compare that to just one sort of virtuous act, one meritorious thing of a bodhisattva, of someone who has given rise to that attitude, those would be equivalent. But then if you are to look at the comparison between an attitude of bodhicitta giving rise to that and the merit that comes from taking hold of the holy dharma, of actually having an understanding of emptiness, then that understanding of emptiness is even greater, holding the merit of holding the holy dharma, and here this is referring to an understanding of emptiness, is even greater than giving rise to bodhicitta. So if you are to sort of compare these the merit that one gains respectively from the teachings that come about the vast activities, including bodhicitta and so forth, and then those that are dealing with the profound dharma, then if one compares them or adds them together, then even 1/16 of like having aspiration or wishing for emptiness, it can't even touch the sort of merit that one gains in the vast activities side of the path, can't even compare to a little bit, one portion of an understanding of emptiness or having wishing aspiration for emptiness. And so this is explained from the sutras and so forth. But here the point is that the merit of understanding emptiness is so great that even something as meritorious as bodhicitta is unable to rival the kind of merit that one gains from an understanding of emptiness.
Oh yeah. Kasi 중화시 쳐봐 잘라서 너나 너래 동반이란 들면에 장주 삼자 미동와다 담비 취니 진제바 되네라 사람 두발라 세가라 아니 사무 동반이라 매와께니 사무 동반이 때라 파나 아니 어떤이 도비 사무 동반이 도비 아니 장주 그 사람 미동와다 장주 그 사람 미동와甚至人 미동와 장주 그 사람 미동와다 사무 동반이 콘도 침발라 때네 겨와 그 남들 농도 그 탐제야 아니 좀 봐봐 담비신이 제셔봐 인사 동반이 또나 아니 저 사람 탐제 아니 동반이 또 빌로 들을 때는 누가 쳐봐 티 들을 때는 누가 쳐봐 라신지 괜히 사람 누발라 세서 시 준비 된디 원래 남지 투라 장와쇼 세로다 다 동반이라다 동반이지 또 비견데 원래 남지 투라 장와쇼 시 탐모잖아 소와대바 라소 세
So then here it continues. So in brief, from the sutras. So here it says that from having sort of wishing aspiration for emptiness. So having this kind of admiration for emptiness, wishing to give rise to an understanding of emptiness, coming to determine the meaning of emptiness. This is not even bodhisattvas give this up. Yeah, so they hold they hold this holy dharma. They grasp this dharma, and all sort of merit is contained within this mind, realizing emptiness. When one comes to an understanding of emptiness that sort of contains all of the other merit or virtue, holds all of the power of that. And so here, the meaning is that coming to understand the benefits of realizing emptiness, the qualities of this kind of wisdom and knowledge, then one having seen seen those benefits, then those who have intelligence, those with a good mind, will hold this in their heart. So it would be good to make sort of requests with folded palms in order to be able to. He's asking you to hold this well, to hold this in one's heart.
Oh yeah, that you are trying to be true there. That's why人家其他卡丘比，所个军人马努巴，去了军赛一切吧，天上高吧三年米，才对的，是吧？人家其他个卡丘吧的，其他个卡的大多丘比，俺那所个军人马努巴的，这一堆这么大吧。马努巴的，与马努巴的，俺那谈学天美都马上哇，什么谈学当然了吧，这天美都马上哇，俺那怎么那么你那么把去了，俺那他前面这边我你前面这边一些军事你把定，一些军事你把定。대야 단이 스바 촌에 제비 아니 가와 사고 토보 냠도 기도세요 이제 봐 디기 아니다 스바 코와데 촌에 제바 그 아니 가와 사고 토보 냠도 기도 시와오세 야
So here then, the second subtopic is how one gives rise to joy, how one generates joy. And so this comes in the 36th verse, saying, nonetheless, so it's been prefaced with this, I don't possess even a fraction of the qualities of the Buddha, but nonetheless, before the stream of this life flowing towards death has come to cease, that I have found slight faith in you, even this I think is fortunate. So here, as one is, although one is moving towards death, you're always moving towards the mouth of death, the mouth of the Lord of Death, and before one's life stream has set, has gone, before this life that we have now, with its freedoms and endowments, has become meaningless, that one has found a valid faith through valid cognition in you, the unsurpassed teacher. Even having found a little bit of faith in you, this too I feel is fortunate. This is an opportunity to remove samsara, to uproot samsara. So I think that this is a fortunate opportunity. So here, reflecting on the fact that although one is moving towards death all the time, before one's life, this life that we have now has become meaningless or has gone, to have found some kind of faith brought about by a valid cognition, this is extremely fortunate, he expresses.
我也在这下什么
So we'll stop there for today.
Om Benza Bhumi Ahom Wanchen Sergi Zaji Om Benza Reke Ahom Chi Chagri Koryugi Korwe Usu Yapo Riva Shalupa Polo Tambole Balang Chetan Raminyan Ludon Lupa Ngayadang Ngayabshen Yandan Don Lam Chodro Raminyan Don Raminyan Gita Rinpoche Vivo Paksam Gishing Dechayapa Mama Pae Loto Kolo Rinpoche Norbo Rinpoche Zunmo Rinpoche Lunbo Rinpoche Lambo Rinpoche Tacho Rinpoche Mapun Rinpoche Tirchen Poye Pumba Gegma Trewama Luma Karma Petogma Dupama Nansama Chichama Nima Dawa Rinpoche Duk Chokwanam Parkyawe Gyaltsen Usuladami Beljur Punzum Sokpa Mazangwa Mepa Sangshing Yidu Wongwa Tirak Tinjan Sawadang Yubar Jebe Belan Lama Dampanam Dam Kebar Du Yang Yongki Kewe Shenye Chempo Zungme Jangse Chuche Lo Sang Tenzin Chokpa Zangbo Shangane Tekpa Chembo Sungju Sapmo Lekbar Tope Katin Tan Raki Yundu Shingambu Agio Tuche Droe Tundu Shesuso Shene Kyang Datso Droa Morgyurnam Ketaran Yambe Semchen Tam Jela Sewa Jampu Kone Jingila Tuso Saji Pogi Ju